You're listening to the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Bruschi.
Big question that is up for debate is what impact will the testimony of the roommates, the surviving roommates in the Bryan Kohberger trial will have on the proceedings. For a little while, there was some speculation that one of them may have some sort of exculpatory evidence. A subpoena was dropped. They eventually sat down and did an interview. But what kind of impact will their statements have? I guess it all depends what they actually have to share. Michael McAuliffe, a former elected state attorney and federal prosecutor, recently shared in an article that was published by Newsweek that while the surviving roommates' testimonies are likely to add some dramatic gravitas to the upcoming court trial, they might not decisively influence the jury's verdict. He commented that the surviving roommates will play an important role in any trial of the Idaho quadruple homicide case. However, while important and dramatic, their testimonies will likely not be determinative of in a jury reading a verdict. Earlier this week, Kohberger, who stands accused of this horrible crime, made his court appearance after a grand jury indicted him on the 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. And Taylor Kohberger's attorney announced that her client was standing silent on the charges. She said it just like that. No, she didn't. Which led to the presiding judge to enter a not guilty plea for each accusation. That's what happens in that sort of a case. The victims, who were all in their 20s, were discovered fatally stabbed at an off-campus residence where Gonzalez, Mogan, and Kernoodle resided. 2 other roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funke, miraculously survived the horrific event. They were in their rooms. The probable cause affidavit, a key document used to justify Kohberger's arrest, detailed the chilling sounds Mortensen recalled from the night of the murders, including the eerie sight of a masked man walking past her room. One of our friends who's on the show regularly, Jennifer Coffindaffer, former FBI agent, stated to Newsweek unequivocally that both Mortensen and Funke will be summoned to testify. 100%, Jennifer said. Further adding to the complexity, Kohberger's defense team has recently submitted a motion asserting that Funke possesses exculpatory information, suggesting evidence that could potentially vindicate their client. Now, this is just talk. You say a lot of things to steer the ship in public direction, but it's quite a statement to make. Nima Rahmani, another regular guest of ours here on the show, spoke with Newsweek. He's president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers and a former federal prosecutor. He discussed and explained that the defense team has argued that Funke has exculpatory evidence, but they haven't yet elaborated on what that information could be. Funke would be an exculpatory witness if she provided evidence of another perpetrator or if she contradicted other prosecution evidence. Intriguingly, Rahmani also noted that Mortensen's testimony might prove more advantageous for Kohberger's defense. Despite her account of seeing a man clad in black, she didn't positively identify Kohberger. Rahmani stated Mortensen reportedly thought Kohberger was a party goer, and she asked him and her roommates to quiet down. Mortensen's testimony may help the defense, who will likely argue that it was a party house and that there were other possible suspects who entered that night. However, Coffindaffer cautioned that while Mortensen's account will be very important, she might face a tough cross-examination, particularly concerning the timeline between her initial sighting of the man in the home and her subsequent call to police, which, if you remember, took quite a bit of time. And there's been a lot of criticism on these young girls for that. But that's what you have to remember. These are young girls who are just beginning life, faced with an unspeakable tragedy in their home. Fear if you're hearing people screaming, shock if you saw anything. As of now, we understand that they did not see any of the evidence or the murder scene until the next day when they eventually left their rooms. And if you are wondering, well, who doesn't leave their room for hours on end or for a whole night or sleep? That almost every teenager or early 20-something is the answer to that. Yeah, I mean, at that age, I mean, I remember I was like that, and I have kids now, and I have one that is close to that age, and yeah, they go in there, they like hibernate almost for for long periods of time. You wonder, like, aren't you getting thirsty? Don't you need water? Sometimes you knock and leave a glass, and I'm kidding, but no, I mean, it's very normal behavior if you're freaked out, you're scared, or if you don't even know anything's happened, and there's a lot of noise around you, and you just want to try and sleep. People scream, people make noises. Party sounds are party sounds. And if you're in a different floor of a home, it's not always the easiest to decipher which is which. But I'm sure the defense will try and poke at why did they not call 911 sooner. I think you just chalk that up to being young, inexperienced, and eventually in shock. As the trial progresses, McAuliffe advised Kohberger's defense team against attempting to discredit the two surviving roommates during their testimonies. Instead, he suggested that they should try to distance them from any evidence linking the defendant to the murders. As the gruesome facts of this case unfold in court this fall, these women will be thrust into an unimaginable situation. And there'll be crucial voices in the pursuit of justice, but unfortunately will likely be victimized once again by having to recall the horrific events of that night.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
The Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Bruschi.
Hey, if you like the podcast, you want access to all of our episodes ad-free, then sign up through Apple Podcasts. You'll get access to not only this podcast ad-free, but all of our podcasts, tons of them to binge away on all different cases and different topics. You can do it through Apple Podcasts. Check it out. You can try it free for 3 days. My name is Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.